Thank you guys for tuning in to the Bootz Sports Show. I'm your host, Bootz. And first let me just say wow. You know, and the reason I say wow, it wasn't that long ago where Jason Garrett was on the hot seat talking about whether there was talk about whether Mike Holmgren would be coming into Dallas next year, or John Gruden was an available option to replace Jason Garrett. It wasn't long ago where the Cowboys couldn't win back-to-back football games, where they struggled to win back-to-back games. It also wasn't so long ago when there were whispers and screams in some cases of replacing Romo. It wasn't so long ago where the New York Giants sat atop the NFC East standings all by themselves, with no company. And as this time starts to run out so slowly, the season starts to come to an end and wind down, your Dallas Cowboys, our Dallas Cowboys, have now put themselves into position to control their own destiny. And what's interesting about that is the relationship that this team has built, or is starting to build, with the fan base. What I mean by that is, in the beginning of the season, there was so much doubt, there was so much consternation, there was so much talk about what kind of team is this. On my previous shows, we talked about the Cowboys failing to have an identity, not being mentally sound. These are all the phrases that we use to describe this Cowboy team. But they battled back. They've been fighting away. They've been doing whatever it takes to win football games. Everything they've done so far has proven to you that they are no longer an easy out, a catastrophe waiting to happen. That's not the case. That's not the case anymore. As Jason Garrett continues to put his stamp on this football team, this team seems to be responding well. And including myself, as well as a lot of other Cowboy fans, we're going to have to lay off Jason Garrett and let this man do his work. And maybe this is a work in progress, or training on the job. As Jerry Jones said, Jason Garrett's not learning on his dime, because he's not paying him to learn, he's paying him to produce. Maybe he is learning on Jerry's dime. But all in all, the Dallas Cowboys beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 27-24 in overtime at home. And the Cowboys haven't had recent success with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not even recent success. They haven't had success beating the Steelers in a long time. And I think that was Tony Romo's first win against Roethlisberger. So I expected this team to come out emotionally drained from last week. First of all, the Josh Brent situation, killing his teammate, intoxicated manslaughter. The full details, if you want that, you can check my previous shows. I talked about that in full detail. But the Cowboys not only came back to play the Cincinnati Bengals last week and win, but they had to come back from being down 2 scores. And they overcame that adversity. They overcame all of the issues that had gone on with Dallas during that week. Hearing that news, losing a teammate, a player. Also losing another player, an irresponsible Josh Brent, who was the driver, obviously, in the intoxicated manslaughter situation that went on last week. But this team found a way to will themselves through that game. And so I was interested in seeing how they would respond in this game to see if they would be emotionally drawn from overcoming. They weren't. They showed no signs of it. They looked like a complete football team this game, and they actually looked like they were as good as any team in the National Football League. They looked like they could go out and play with them. Tony Romo looked fantastic, and we'll talk about him a little bit more. This offensive line looked great. They looked good. Their best game that I've seen them play this year. They kept Tony upright, and they provided rush lanes for DeMarco Murray to be able to run the football effectively. Tony wasn't harassed. Tony was only touched twice the entire game. Sacked one time. Roethlisberger had a hard time in the pocket, staying in the pocket and being effective in the pocket. So I was also worried about this game from the standpoint that Rob Ryan was a defensive coordinator in Cleveland. Rob Ryan is now our defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys, for those of you who may not know. You should be familiar with him, because anytime you see this gray-haired male with a big belly every 10 or 15 minutes of the game on the sideline screaming all kinds of profanity, that's him. That's Rob Ryan, your defensive coordinator. But he was a defensive coordinator with Cleveland. And he had very, very minuscule success against the Steelers in his tenure as a defensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns. So he was losing games 41-9, not able to, to even allow Cleveland's inept offense a chance to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they were 1-4, 1-3 in his tenure there. I think 1-3. But I was concerned to see how he would adapt. And on top of that, how he would adapt with a bunch of players. Let's face it, Cowboy fans. We got this defense, Brian Schafering. That's a defensive tackle. That was your starting defensive tackle yesterday. Sean Leesamore, another defensive tackle. Alex Albright. Sterling Moore, your safety slash corner, or corner slash safety. Danny McCray. These are names. This roster, at one point, I looked at the roster on defense, and it looked like a preseason football game. It looked like a Cowboys preseason football game. But there were stars out on that field. There were stars on that defense. And they showed up at the right time. Anthony Spencer, any player that I know that was hated more than Tony Romo, if it was one player on the team, it was Anthony Spencer. People felt he was ineffective. People felt he wasn't good. People felt, well, guess what, guys? You're all wrong. Anthony Spencer has probably been our best defensive player this year. Now, I know DeMarcus Ware is hurt. He's playing through a lot. He's got a harness on he's playing with. I understand all that. But facts are facts. Anthony Spencer has played phenomenal this year. And it's going to be an interesting financial decision that Jason Garrett and Jerry Jones are going to have to make in order to secure his future, if they even intend to do that. The usual stars showed up. DeMarco Murray, probably running at 80%, was effective. He was very effective. Dez Bryant, there was much talked about his fractured finger, his index finger. Didn't seem to be a problem. I did see a drop or two, but you know what? He made plays, scored touchdowns. He was unstoppable. They could have kept feeding him. Tony Romo, and I look at the field sometimes, I talk, and I look at that field like a grand stage. I look at it like a stage. And Tony Romo, with the lights bearing down on him, and the curtains opening up. He was fabulous. He was fantastic. He was just as good as the other guy who's maybe one day may end up in the Hall of Fame. He was just as good, if not better. Tony, and I've been telling you, people, and I can think of just about every person or player or post on a website that I've been on that has wanted to replace Tony, because those people always stick in my mind because I want to say I told you so one day. Tony's playing lights out football. Now, some people only point at the end, because like today on these sports shows, they're not talking about Tony Romo. They want to talk about Josh Brent because that's more important than talking about the good game Tony Romo has. They want to wait until he has a bad slip up so they can make that the opening of the show. But Tony's playing fantastic football. Fantastic football. And I tell you guys, we're not going anywhere unless Tony is Tony. And he has been. So he made all the throws that he needed to make. The velocity, it seems like his arm has gotten stronger too, because the velocity he puts on some of them balls, it's just amazing. You got some of these young guys that are also coming in that are helping out too. And it's kind of a good thing. Remember when and Cowboy purists remember LaRon Robinson? And I say purists because some people watch the game cosmetically, and you could be a fan, and I have no problem with that. You're a Cowboy fan. You don't really know the players. You just know you like the Cowboys, and that's it. And that's fine. You don't have to know everybody when you watch the team. But when you start to understand the schemes and what the Cowboys are trying to do, and you learn the players and the nuances, it starts to become infectious. And LaRon Robinson, who we picked up off the street last year, he was an injured wide receiver, highly touted wide receiver coming out of college. And he was the perfect slot receiver. He could play any of the positions, X, Y, Z. He could play all of the receivers' positions, but he was a perfect slot. He came in and was awesome. However, we couldn't afford to keep him. He played so well. Jacksonville gave him a boatload of money. The Cowboys couldn't match him. And that was one player that, at the time, we wished that we could have kept. Guess what? Cowboys got some toys, man. Cowboys got some young players that LaRon Robinson might have hindered their growth and not allowed us to see in Dwayne Harris, number 17, Cole Beasley, number 11. And these young guys are making plays on this field in crunch time. They've gone up against number 1 wideouts, got open and gotten key first downs. Those guys are going to be awesome to watch in years to come. I saw a lot of youth out there, future Cowboys, that are going to be good players down the road. That Dwayne Harris single-handedly put us in position to win that football game. Single-handedly. Good player. Now, Witten is Witten. Witten's all reliable, man. He's a reliable dude. When Romo needs it to get out of a jam, it's Witten. It's Witten. Now, he's like the Robin, Romo being Batman, he's like Robin. Now, I gotta mention the fact that Dan Bailey, this team struggled looking for kickers. I mean, literally my whole Cowboy life, this team has struggled looking for Cowboy kickers. And when we were bad, the Tim Cedars of the world, I remember the battle between him and Ryan Lindell, who now kicks field goals for Buffalo. Let me tell you, they got themselves a kicker. And we knew it last year. But the kicks are now becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And this kid just keeps splitting the middle of the uprights. He's won games for us. He's been a big part of this team. They finally got their kicker. So, you got to take your hat off to the offensive line. The offensive line was my biggest concern, was every Cowboy fan's biggest concern. You have to at least appreciate the work that they've done. Now look, Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach, highly regarded offensive line coach, came in here and we expected to see dividends paid immediately. At least I did. But what happened was there was so much turmoil. Both of your right tackle in Doug Free played left last year. Tyron Smith now is your left. He played right. We brought in 2 guards, Nate Livings from the Cincinnati Bengals, and we brought in Mackenzie Bernardo from the Carolina Panthers. So everybody was playing a new position, and Phil Costa came in, and obviously we know the kid got hurt and yada yada yada. I don't want to waste all your time with all the semantics, but my point is there was no cohesion all season. These guys were playing new positions and they weren't sure about the calls, the line calls, and all these things were going on, and they still got games to play. Not to mention Mackenzie Bernardo ended up getting hurt, missing all the preseason, and basically, you know, getting a hip operation and coming back and playing without any. I mean, you know, some of these guys had to introduce themselves in the huddle because it was the first time. Ryan Cook, it was the first time the center. It was the first time he's seen some of these guys. So you can see it coming together. You can see it coming together. And last week they didn't play bad. They didn't play bad. They played okay last week. You're starting to see the offensive line starting to gain some trust in each other. And Tony Romo not getting touched in this game, you know, not being assaulted. When you think of the Pittsburgh Steelers, you think Dick LeBeau is sending everybody after you. Every single play there's going to be corner blitzes, slot blitzes, cobra blitzes, whatever you want to call them. There's going to be all kinds of different defensive formations and you know, all kinds of dog blitzes. And the team never seemed like it was even worried. Tony never got happy feet. He never ran around back there recklessly. He was calm poised. And that was the reason that I felt during the game that we had a very good chance, because Tony wasn't harassed. So, you know, some of these names that you're seeing, and this was no Morris Claiborne, by the way. So Morris Claiborne didn't play on defense. You know, some of these names that you're seeing, these guys that we literally picked up off their couch, those guys are going to be future players. I think that Sterling Moore is going to be a mainstay Cowboy. I think he's going to be a mainstay. He's going to be a guy that's going to be there for a couple of years. He's going to be there for a few years, and he's going to make plays. Now, they're going to get some of these guys back healthy for next year, like the Bruce Carters of the world, the Sean Lees of the world. This defense, you haven't seen it much yet this year, but it's going to be a problem next year. Now, in closing, I'm going to just mention that I think that this team is starting to mature right in front of our eyes. I think guys are actually making plays when they're called upon. Victor Butler's strip on the return, the punt return. I mean, Brandon Carr stepping up in overtime, taking that interception back to about the 1-yard line. That's the reason you brought Brandon Carr in here, guys. And I know a lot of you guys, who, like I said, who maybe not football purists or even Cowboy purists, may not have even known who Brandon Carr was. Brandon Carr is a guy who's going to play physical. He's also going to make plays on the football. Those are things that Terrence Newman didn't do when he was here. Terrence Newman had a nice run here. He was a good cover guy with speed out of Kansas State, but he never trusted his ability enough to actually make a play on the ball. The ball had to be thrown directly at Terrence. He wasn't going to let the wide receiver go and make a play on the ball. Brandon Carr does that. So, we got a lot to look forward to. A lot to look forward to as Cowboy fans. It's looking like we're putting a very, very good product out there on the field. Last night, me and my buddies, Sideline Chatter, at podbean.com, if you want to check out some of his Eagle stuff, we were talking about scenarios. We were doing all the possible playoff scenarios, all the possible tiebreakers. We're going out to 5th, 6th tiebreakers, you know, even coin tosses. And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens from here. So, Cowboys haven't won anything yet. We got Drew Brees coming to town. So, we're going to have to figure out how to stop big explosive plays down the field. My concerns are these blown coverages. Big explosive plays down the field. You want to pick a wrong time to have blown coverages and miscommunications on defense, like that 60-yard pass play down the field. You want to start doing that? Drew Brees coming to town. You don't want that. You don't want it. Another concern that I have, I mentioned it in the previous show. I think I'm going to keep mentioning it until we do something about it. the pick routes. Teams are running these pick routes, and they're able to pick our defense. Now, it didn't happen in this game. It wasn't evident in this game. But most of these coverages that you see, if you want to beat the Dallas Cowboys defensive secondary, then it's very simple. You just want to line up a lot of stack routes, a lot of diamond routes, a lot of diamond formations, stack formations, and have them crisscross or even set picks. And the Cowboys just don't have an answer for that. So a lot of these design plays are how you beat the Cowboys, because we play so much man coverage. So I want to see these blown coverages addressed. The last concern that I have right now, as the Cowboys sit at 8-6 and are in a three-way tie in the NFC East with the Washington Redskins, who we played last game of the season, and the New York Giants, injuries. I mean, this team has been beat up bad injury-wise. I think we're down 8 starters on defense last night. So Ernie Sims went out last night with an injury. So those are things that we're going to have to overcome. But in closing, the Cowboys have been able to overcome all of their deficiencies this year. They've done a great job closing games out, coming from behind, making key concentration, focus plays on the field when they needed it. Now, they let a couple go earlier this year. That Giant game, Des Bryant got behind the coverage, hauled the ball in, and was out by a fingertip on the line. You know, that Ravens game where we rushed for 260-plus yards on the Ravens, Dan Bailey misses that field goal by 2 inches. So we had opportunities to even secure this division. And I'm sure the Giants and the Redskins could look back at some games that they lost close and say, well, we could have won this one, we could have done this different than that. But all in all, guys, this Cowboy team is starting to mature and show up right in front of your face. So it's giving us hope. It's giving you a good product to watch. I think we'll be on TV. I'm in North Jersey area, so we should be on TV these next 2 weeks. So at least you'll be able to see some of these guys make plays. You want to know why they gave Brandon Carr $50 million? Go watch that overtime interception. That's why he was a highly sought-after free agent, and that's why he was paid that money. Thank God we didn't get Nnamdi. Thank God we got Brandon Carr. I'm your host, Uncle Bootz. I'm out of here, and let's look forward to this week's matchup at home against the Saints. Thanks for tuning in, guys, once again. I appreciate all your feedback. I appreciate all you guys for giving me time, minutes. Definitely subscribe to my page or hit like afterwards if you like it. Even if you don't like it, you can hit dislike. But go Cowboys.